The second key came out of the drawer at the Accumulation Site. I put it in my pocket without looking at it closely. There were other things happening. The founding document had just finished writing itself below our names, and there was a pulse coming through the floor that neither of us had heard before. And at some point my hand closed around the key, and I carried it out of the building without examining it. That was yesterday. Tonight, I am examining it. We are in the chart room aboard the Morwenna. Hannah has the southern node map spread flat on the port side table, weighted at the corners with the Duraith binder and a coffee tin that has been here longer than either of us. The overhead light is close to the table. I have both keys in front of me, and I am going to describe them carefully and then figure out why two of them exist, because that is the only thing I can think to do with the information that there are two, and I have to start somewhere. The key I have carried since episode 7 is brass. Small, simple mechanism, nothing unusual about the bow or the blade, nothing that would mark it as anything other than a standard early 20th century door key. The teeth are worn slightly on one side from repeated use. I have used it to open the door marked 47 at the Marginal Road building. I have used it to open the unmarked door on the landing. Both opened. I know this. I have not examined the key closely since the first week I had it, and the reason for that is harder to justify now than it felt at the time. I knew what it opened. It seemed sufficient. The second key is brass, small, simple mechanism. I am holding them both under the light right now, one in each hand, and they are the same weight, the same length. I am placing them next to each other on the table, same cut, same wear pattern on the same side. Not similar, the same. The marks are positioned identically, as if both keys were made from the same blank and spent their existence opening the same door in the same direction with the same hand motion. Hannah looks up from the map. She has been watching me do this for about a minute without saying anything, which is something she does when she already has a thought she wants me to arrive at on my own. I tell her what I'm seeing. She says, "They were made together. Not matching. Not copies. Made together. A pair, cut as a pair, issued as a pair, which means the door at 47 Marginal Road was always intended to be accessed by two people." I write that down. I put a line under it. Two people had access to the same door. One of them is me, which is an incomplete answer because I did not choose this key. It arrived in my investigation the way most things in this system arrive. Already present, already significant, already pointing somewhere I had not looked yet. The second key was in the Accumulation Site drawer. Someone placed it there. Someone with access to the primary grid placed a key to 47 Marginal Road in the archive at the center of the network and left it in a drawer. That is not incidental. I open the O'Connor journal, the Project Chronos one, dark green cover, and find the entry I have been thinking about since we left the headland, July 1923. O'Connor is writing about the door marked 47. He mentions it in passing, which is the thing that bothered me about it the first time I read it, and bothers me more now. He writes about the door the way you write about furniture. A door you use. A door that is already part of your routine. There is no entry where he finds the key, no entry where he first opens it. The key is simply there, in the same way my key was simply there. He does not describe it. He does not note where it came from. I tell Hannah this. She has come around to my side of the table and is reading over my shoulder, which she does when the material shifts from background to relevant. She says he'd had it long enough that it stopped being something to write about, which means he had it before 1919, when the journals begin, which means the key, at least one of the keys, was in circulation before O'Connor's recorded investigation of 47 Marginal Road. Before the node protocol. Before crescent marks and four-step sequences and brass catalog slots. Before most of what we know. I pull the second key close again and tilt it under the light. I am looking for anything I missed in the first examination. The bow, the blade, the shaft. I stop. On the inner shaft, not the blade side, the inner face of the shaft where the metal runs back into the bow. A stamped mark, small, I would have missed it at normal distance. It looks like a manufacturing stamp, the kind that identifies foundry and batch, except it is not. I know this symbol. I have seen it on the title shelf below the headland. I have seen it on the stone at the accumulation site. It is from the title shelf system. I show Hannah. She is quiet for a moment, and then she sits down. The title shelf symbols predate the archive. We confirmed that in Season 3, the archive inherited its oldest symbol vocabulary from those marks. The pre-registry catalog card notation derived from that source. If this mark is stamped into the key's shaft, then the key was not manufactured for the archive. It was not manufactured for 47 Marginal Road. The key did not originate at the house. Whatever the door at 47 Marginal Road was for, before the node, before O'Connor, before any of the investigation protocols we have documented, it was already part of a system older than the archive. The door was always that door. The key was always that key. Either the house was built later, or it was built around something that was already there. I tell Hannah I want to find the original property record for the site. Not the archives record, the municipal record. The building permit, the surveyor's documentation, whatever existed before the archive touched it. She goes to the chart table and opens the Wraith binder, not because it contains property records, but because she is checking the coastal survey references against something on her chart. I watch her work for a moment and then return to the keys. Both keys. Both stamped with the same mark. Both issued as a pair. Both tied to a door that predates the system that supposedly issued them. I flip to the back of the Chronos journal, where O'Connor made occasional notations separate from the main entries. Some of them I've read, some of them I've noted and passed over, because in investigation you make choices about what demands attention now and what can wait. There is a notation on the last filled page, not the last page, just the last page with writing, that I have looked at before and not examined properly. 4 words and a date. The date is 1931. The 4 words are, returned it, not enough. I have looked at this entry before and moved on from it. I am not sure why. Possibly because the entries surrounding it are denser, longer observations about the grid sequence, the crescent marks, the behavior of the device, and 4 words in the margin felt like a footnote rather than a conclusion. It is easy to pass over the short things. I have done it before with material that later turned out to be the point. I am looking at it closely now. The ink is different from the entries on the same page, darker. The pressure of the pen heavier. I can feel the impression of it when I run my thumb across the back of the page. He wrote this line hard, like he was pressing the words into the paper rather than putting them there. The rest of the page is lighter, careful, his normal hand. This notation was made in a different state, quickly, or under pressure, or both. There is something else. In the left margin beside the 4 words, so small I initially mistook it for a smear, a single additional mark. Not a letter, a bracket, the kind used to indicate something requiring action, something unresolved. Except the bracket is closed. Whatever it once marked as unresolved, O'Connor later decided it was settled and closed the bracket himself, and that closing stroke is pressed as hard as the words beside it. He considered this finished. He did not consider it enough. I have assumed returned it referred to a document. Some piece of archive material O'Connor obtained and gave back to the system because it didn't resolve what he was looking for. I have held that assumption since the first time I read it, and I am now formally questioning it. Returned it. A key. He returned a key. And it wasn't enough. Whatever he hoped the return would accomplish, complete, close, it wasn't enough. If he returned 1 key, he had 1 key to return, which means the pair was separated, which means at some point between the manufacture of 2 identical keys and O'Connor's 1931 notation, they stopped being together. 1 key went to me, 1 key went to the accumulation site drawer. The question I cannot answer yet: which key went where and when, and who made the separation? Hannah says, from the chart table, the property record for the Marginal Road site will be in the municipal demolition files. If the building came down in 1931, there was a demolition order. Demolition orders reference the original permit. I ask her how she knows it came down in 1931. She says, because nothing at that address shows up in any survey after that year. I checked the coastal grid before we went to the headland. The site is blank on the 1932 chart. It was there in 1929. I write down, fire, 1931. Demolition. O'Connor's last entry is 1931. Coincidence requires justification. It does not feel like coincidence. O'Connor's investigation ends. The building ends. 1 year. I need the municipal record. I need to know whether the fire was accidental, whether it was deliberate, and whether the demolition order names anyone as responsible. I need to know if O'Connor was there when it burned. We work for another hour. Hannah cross-references the 1929 Coastal Survey notation against the Southern Node grid map. The Marginal Road site appears on the grid, not as a closed node, not as a pending node. It appears as something the map marks with a notation I cannot fully decode, because the symbol beside it is not one I have seen before at any other marked location. It is not a crescent. It is not parallel lines. It is not the tidal shelf vocabulary. It is something specific to that site. I ask Hannah if she has seen it before. She does not answer immediately. She leans over the map, closer than she needs to for the size of the symbol, and I watch her look at it the way she looks at things when recognition is arriving from somewhere she did not expect it to come from. Not study. Something closer to retrieval. She is not analyzing the symbol. She is placing it. The pause runs longer than her usual beat, long enough that I do not prompt her. Then she straightens slightly and says, once, in the 1987 material, I did not know what it meant then. I wait. She goes back to the chart. I know better than to push. There is a difference between Hannah not remembering and Hannah not saying, and this is the second one. She recognized it immediately. She has already decided how much of that recognition belongs to this conversation, and the answer is one sentence. What the material was, what the context was, what she made of it at the time, those are held. Deliberately. She will tell me when she decides the investigation needs it, which may not be tonight. I am making notes about the key's title shelf stamp, trying to identify which mark specifically, where on the shelf I saw it, what function it was assigned in the symbol system as we partially decoded it, when I noticed the shape of the bow again. Standard brass casting. But the weight sits wrong in my hand for what should be a simple mechanism. I have held this key for a long time. I know its weight. I hold the second key. Different, not much, a few grams at most. But the second key is heavier, and the weight is not in the bow where casting mass would sit. It is in the blade, which means the second key has material in the blade, the first key does not. Not hollow, nothing so dramatic, but something embedded in the casting, something that was part of the pour. I tell Hannah. She comes over and holds both keys, one after the other, without speaking. Then she sets them down and looks at the title shelf symbol stamped on the inner shaft of the second key. She says quietly, what if the pair was never meant to be carried separately? She means, what if the keys are not two independent objects? What if they are a single mechanism divided, two halves of something that only functions when both are present, like the convergence, like the two-investigator requirement that runs through the entire system? Not a door key. A condition. Proof that two people stood in the same place at the same moment. That is not a conclusion. It is a direction. I put the keys down on the table parallel to each other. The device is in the canvas bag at the edge of the table. It has been inactive since the tidal shelf depression, since the moment I placed my hand in the worn stone and the pulse locked. I have not tried to use it since then. I have not reached into the bag. I have been carrying a stopped instrument for 24 hours. I'm still looking at the 2 keys when it starts. Not a pulse. Not the 4-second interval I know from 2 years of investigation. A tone. Steady, continuous, no break in the signal. It comes through the canvas of the bag, and I stand up before I have decided to stand up, and I reach in and close my hand around the device and pull it out. The tone does not change when I hold it. It does not accelerate, does not alter. It is directional. I turn toward the bow of the ship, and the tone stays. I turn toward the stern, and the tone drops slightly, not off, but diminished. I turn back toward the chart room door. It holds. Hannah is watching me. She does not ask what I'm doing. She knows what I'm doing because we both know what this means. The device no longer reads nodes. We confirmed what it was at the title shelf, what it became after direct grid contact. It is not reading the Morwenna. It is not reading the channel. It is reading someone. There is a listener near this vessel. The footsteps come down the passageway outside before I finish the thought. Deliberate, unhurried. Someone who knows where the chart room is. They stop outside the door. A knock. I have the device in my hand. I have both keys on the table behind me. I'm looking at the door, and the tone from the device is steady, and it is pointing directly at the door. A voice from the other side. You can stop checking the device. It's pointing at me.